there's a fairly straightforward ethical case for it. I mean, there's this obvious injury that you can bound historically in at least to a first approximation, and you can link it up with a fairly obvious debt. I mean, you can make some argument about the amount of wealth that was created, and we have the history of wealth inequality that followed. It's something. It's not nearly as clean as a more contemporaneous injury, like you're paying reparations for Holocaust survivors in the immediate aftermath of the Holocaust, say. But it still is. It's fairly easy to pinpoint the moral problem. I think it's very hard to make a practical case for it, and I think it's impossible at the moment to make a compelling political case for it. I mean, just to take the immediate concern of the next presidential election, my gut intuition is that pushing for reparations now for among the Democrats is just a guaranteed way to get Trump elected for 4 more years. I think it's a political non-starter that's not going to prevent certain Democrats from attempting it. But so even if at the end of a long conversation, I could say I'm for reparations. I'm not for reparations in this election cycle, just because I think it will guarantee Trump. So that's the so I think those are separable pieces. As far as yeah, I mean, it's just the ethical case is pretty clear. It's just the issue you get into is that immediately bleeds into the practical case. I mean, who pays and who gets paid, right? And how? Like what are reparations in this case? And what are we actually correcting for? Are we correcting for the ambient level of racism that still exists to the disadvantage of African Americans, or are we correcting for identifiable theft for people who are the descendants of slaves? And I mean, so there are many people who are black who probably who certainly inherit whatever consequential racism still exists, but they aren't descended from slaves, right? They're immigrants, or their parents were immigrants. Uh, so how you reconcile all of that? I mean, that's very difficult.
Yeah, so I like that you separate this into the ethical conversation and the practical conversation. I think most supporters of reparations limit themselves to the ethical part of the conversation, clearly because they have a better case there. But there have been some, like the economist Sandy Darity, who have pretty persuasively worked out the practical side as well. He has a plan for how to determine who gets it, and he sort of worked out many of the kinks in a
Mm.
way that at least makes me feel, as someone who still opposes most versions of reparations, that I can't win the argument on the practicalities alone. But then there's this third part, which is political, about which I completely agree with you. I mean, I think there's something crazy about being blindsided by things over and over again. So I was someone who was blindsided by Trump's victory, absolutely blindsided, and extremely distraught. And I think we have to learn the lesson to not do things that are going to get us blindsided again in 2020. I think reparations is clearly one of those things, given how unpopular it is.